Fan edits are pretty cool, right? They're an intersection of remix culture, fandom, and filmmaking. They deconstruct movies, finished works of popular art, into their ingredients, and then attempt to reconstruct them in a different way, or into a different product. They play with the power of editing to demonstrate how far you can go to change one experience into another without being the original author behind writing and filming it. But usually, at least in the most popular examples, the motivation behind these fan edits is what gets the most attention. Predominantly, fan edits are made by people who were very invested in a movie, so much so that when they were disappointed by it, they continued to crave the experience they originally wanted, and went so far as to put in the time to try and assemble it themselves. When you make this kind of fan edit, it's an articulation of the movie you want that movie to be. You want to take Jar Jar out of The Phantom Menace. You want The Hobbit to be less long and bloated. There are lots of other interesting kinds of fan edits, remixes that play with the form, genre swap movies, mash them up with something else. But this seems to be the most popular kind, the kind that people like to talk about, the kind that captures your imagination, and even if you don't seek it out and watch it, you still like to talk about it. Hey, you know how insert Star Wars movie here was so close to being good? You know how you wish it was better? Did you hear somebody tried to make it better in a fan edit? Tried to fix everything you felt was wrong? Aw man, I'd love that. I wish it was better too. That's you, that's what you sound like. Because of this motivation, fan edits are at once a critique of the movie in question, demonstrating all of its criticisms by trying to enact them, and a celebration of that movie, demonstrating also all the elements of the film that already worked, pursuing the experience of enjoying those elements without the stuff you didn't like spoiling it, and showing that you're so dedicated to those parts of that movie that you'll go to the lengths of making a fan edit to preserve them. It's also worth noting the way that fan edits veer towards fan entitlement. Most fan edits you'll hear about will be sequels and adaptations, movies that were sold to people who were already invested in movies, books, or video games, as the case may be, that came before. There's a tendency among people who would self-identify as fans when criticizing movies to act as if they were owed a better one. I've done this, I'm guilty. Don't watch my video about the 2014 Ninja Turtles. I promise one of these days I'll make a better one. Do I mean a better video or a better Ninja Turtles movie? Who's to say? But no matter how much you like or dislike The Last Jedi, fans were not owed more or less than they got because they were fans. That's not how movies work. And I'm not necessarily prescribing that kind of thinking to fan edits. You kind of have to be a fan to be invested enough to make one, and a more positive reading of the situation is that these fan edits are a personal manifestation of the movie you had in your head achieved through an exercise in editing. Not the movie that you were owed, but nonetheless the movie that you wanted. So, with all that said, I was very invested in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Weirdly invested, to take a step outside myself for a second. What the hell? The movie in my head, based on the prompt, "They're making a Sonic movie," was so tantalizing to me. So much so that I created a beautiful affront to nature that I am both proud of like it was my child and terrified to speak its name. I've made 9 videos related to the Sonic movie. This video you're watching is my 10th. First was the video I released when I'd finished writing Ogilvy, my Sonic movie. In that video, I talked about how I was fascinated by the idea of a Sonic movie, and also didn't care if the new one was bad, which I fully expected it to be based on the available promotional materials and leaks. The second was after the trailer came out.
Oh! That couldn't look worse! What the? That couldn't look worse!
So at this point I kind of started getting excited for a so bad it's good Sonic movie. The third was after the internet ridiculed that trailer, the movie went back into the oven and came out with a fresh new design for Sonic. And suddenly I was excited about the movie on a different level. Changing the design didn't just remove the surface level dissonance, it did something more. Does fixing the design fix the movie? Is it still gonna be bad? Like the first trailer, there was clearly a lot wrong with the movie outside of just the design, so fixing that isn't gonna fix everything, right? Yes and no. Like obviously on paper, just making Sonic look nice isn't going to redeem a bad movie, but you being able to like Sonic would redeem a bad movie or a mediocre movie. My 5th video was my review after I'd seen the movie, and the rest are about Ogilvy, which I won't talk about here, and the upcoming sequel, which I'll come back to later. Everything I've told you so far should serve as evidence that I was invested enough in the Sonic movie for a fan edit to be plausible. But when I actually saw it, did I feel about it the way I described people feeling about the movies they make fan edits of? Was it very nearly what I wanted, barring significant reservations?
Is the Sonic movie good? I don't know, but I liked it. I like that it made me like the character of Sonic and gave him a completely different dynamic than he's had lately. I like that it's so dated that when I come back to this movie, it will elicit reactions of "that's so 2019", just like Sonic proper elicits "that's so 90s". I liked that a lot of it was basically hop, because I'm a broken human being who watched Alvin and the Chipmunks too much. I liked how it ended. A lot.
The answer, of course, was it was, and I did. I made my own cut of the Sonic movie, and since all fan edits have some cool subtitle, I guess I have to come up with mine. Sonic the Hedgehog, the Snyder Cut. Okay, full disclosure, I was about to write a segment where I pitched a bunch of quickfire bad titles, but I landed on the Snyder Cut super fast, and I actually love it. Cause like Sonic Snide, that is his thing, it's the Snyder Cut. So the only other title I wrote was Hot But Better. So I made around 60 changes to the movie that I'll broadly describe to you, kind of going category by category rather than chronologically because that wouldn't be fun to listen to. And since I can't actually show you the entire movie, this is basically going to be a recipe for making your own Sonic fan edit. But with that said, I will link a few scenes in the description. I cut the movie 32 minutes shorter, bringing it down to a runtime of 1 hour and 6 minutes. It's kind of a TV movie now. One friend I've shown it to said it played like a low-budget Disney Channel movie.
This is acceptable.
I also reframed every shot in the movie into a 4:3 aspect ratio, and then recorded it onto a VHS tape, which is how I feel the Sonic movie was always meant to be watched. One thing I've never done before but learned how to do for this edit was splitting the surround soundtrack into its 5 distinct audio channels. This ended up meaning I could change way more than I honestly expected to be able to effectively. By doing this, you can isolate dialogue and sound effects from the music in any scene. This meant I was able to swap out the soundtrack wherever I wanted. So in many scenes, this meant grabbing some tracks from actual Sonic games and syncing them up with the movie. The logos and opening scene now play to a dramatic orchestral version of the theme from Emerald Hill Zone, which I will not play here because I did not get permission to use it. I figured there wasn't much point since I can't share the fan edit publicly. The Hyper Potions track they used for the Green Hill Zone scene is cool, but felt a little out of place and like it was inserted to appropriate the recent goodwill towards Sonic Mania, so I swapped it to an orchestral Green Hill remix, which I felt was a little more appropriate. I replaced Don't Stop Me Now with Sonic Heroes, which I think has the right silly feel-good vibe.
Today is your lucky day.
It also synced up weirdly well with this bit right here where Sonic's lip-syncing along. When I made Ogilvy, I filled the soundtrack with a lot of classic Sonic tracks because I'm a classic Sonic fan. I didn't see Sonic X growing up, only the Jaleel White Sonic cartoons, so in my head those will always be the real Sonic. I didn't play any modern Sonic games until I was about 12, apart from Heroes and Rider Zero Gravity, plus brief glances at 06 and Unleashed at friends' houses. I mostly played the Genesis games on my copy of Mega Collection Plus. But unlike Ogilvy, you'll see I put a fair few modern Sonic songs into the Snyder Cut. I think it just fits the tone better. For one, Sonic hanging out with human people is an exclusively modern Sonic thing, and it fits the early 2000s VHS vibe I was going for.
One thing I said from the very first trailer was that I would be completely fine with this movie ripping off the Quicksilver scenes from the X-Men movies because I like them so much. And sure enough they did, and sure enough, I did enjoy the one scene that was 100% that.
That scene was originally set to a song called Boom by X Ambassadors, and I swapped it for Wonder Man, a tie-in single released by Right Said Fred as a promotion for Sonic 3 in the UK.
Really?
In this scene where Robotnik's drones are chasing Sonic and Tom, I changed the score to an orchestral version of the Sonic 2 boss music. There's one scene where I added an entirely new montage to the movie set to a song. Most of my changes were me cutting stuff out, but for the scene where they arrive in San Francisco, it felt to me like we went from Maddie's sister's house to San Francisco without enough transition. Also, they let Sonic drive there, and I don't know why they did that, so I cut that out.
Is there anything you didn't hit?
Why did we let the alien drive?
I don't know, why did you? So what I did to make this flow more smoothly was I grabbed some stock footage of San Francisco from various sources and then set it to the song San Francisco by Scott McKenzie. It doesn't fully fit, I didn't have any footage to work with of the three of them driving, and the scene in the movie is cloudier than the footage I used, but I work with what I've got, and I liked it well enough. Next comes another Quicksilver montage. This time I swapped it from this to the Crush 40 version of Sonic Boom. This scene is hyped now. The next scene after that is Robotnik chasing Sonic through San Francisco, then through Paris, China, and Egypt. I swapped out the score for the version of City Escape from the 30th Anniversary Symphony, which felt right to me since City Escape is one of the most iconic Sonic songs, and the level it played in was based on San Francisco. Oh, and by the way, this line is my favorite reference in the movie.
Alright, Eggman. You wanna get fast? Let's get fast.
The hard way it is.
I love the new version of the scene. It might be my favorite part of the fan edit. And that's one of the scenes you can watch in the description if you want. For the final confrontation between Sonic and Robotnik, where he goes supersonic, except not, I changed the score to Solaris Phase 2 from Sonic 06, which is to say the instrumental version of his world.
This was his home.
He was my friend.
I don't care if Sonic 06 is one of the most infamously terrible games of all time. His world is a bop. There's a scene at the end when we're back at Tom and Maddie's house where they play a jazzy piano version of Green Hill by Jon Batiste, but originally it only played for a few seconds and stopped playing so that a government man could show up and talk about Olive Garden. That scene's gone now, along with the other Olive Garden scene, the Zillow scene, and the first scene with the boring government characters. Anyway, I downloaded the full version of the song to line it up and stretch it out longer into the scene than it originally went.
So, do you guys wanna watch a movie or what?
Sorry, buddy, it's a school night. It's time for you to go back to your cake.
And finally, for the credits, they originally had a sequence animated in the style of the Genesis games set to a rap song. I cut this out completely, mostly because the animation doesn't actually look convincingly like the games, but also the disparity between what this movie is and the source material is just emphasized by pretending like, yep, that was the story of Sonic, just like you've always known it. It super isn't, and that's okay. So instead, the credits begin while playing the cover of San Francisco by Scott McKenzie found in Last Black Man in San Francisco, as sung by Mike Marshall.
If you're going to San Fran.
And then if you stay long enough, it also plays the original Sonic Boom. So that's all the music I added, but the other thing splitting the surround sound channels allowed me to do was address one of the complaints I made in my review.
Ham-fisted emotional moments that miss the mark and overuse the score to try to make you feel something.
Here's one scene to demonstrate what I was talking about there.
I'm really gonna miss this place. I know I have to leave Earth to be safe, but what if Long Claw was wrong? Maybe I could have a life here.
I didn't think this was the kind of gripe I would have the power to remedy, but sure enough, here's how it plays in the Snyder Cut.
I'm really gonna miss this place. I know I have to leave Earth to be safe, but what if Long Claw was wrong? Maybe I could have a life here.
I'm really proud of this change. I think the emotional beat hits so much harder now. I also did the same thing in this scene.
I just want you to know that these last 2 days have been the best 2 days of my life.
So since we're looking at actual gripes I had now, let's look at some of the ones in my review and how I addressed them.
It still aspires to and pursues the idea that Sonic is a kid, and his motivations are that of a kid.
Those of a kid. I should have said those of a kid. His motivations are those of a kid. That annoys me every time I've gone back to this video. Anyway, this is the quality in the movie I most enjoyed, and what I was aiming to bring out in this fan edit. The orphaned Sonic finding a parental relationship in Tom and Maddie is super wholesome and feel good, so I wanted to emphasize that and remove anything that undermined it. Namely,
Then there's the gross jokes. And I don't just mean fart jokes. There is a fart joke that is the grossest fart joke I've ever heard in a kid's movie. But there's also way more adult humor meant to fly over the heads of the kiddos than I would have expected, which was uncomfortable.
So, the only one of these kinds of jokes that I mentioned in my review was the fart. And honestly, I wondered if I'd overblown how big of an issue this was in my review, since I couldn't easily recall any other examples besides the fart. But no, I hadn't. Oh my god, there are so many. Here are all the ones I removed, and I'm absolutely gonna put in a timecode for you to skip this if you want to, because... oh boy. Armpit farts, an anal probe joke.
Ah, my babies. Ooh, look what came out of my egg sac.
They don't need time off to get drunk and put the boat in the water.
A vomiting/breastfeeding joke including the phrase rub it in my face. Sonic saying he's gonna puke. A colonoscopy joke. A drug dealer joke. A sexual assault gag. No, really.
Yeah, laugh it up.
Nice work, Romeo.
A wiping your ass joke. The fart, and the line check your fur on that one, implying the fart is in fact a shart. A gag where they tie up Maddie's sister, including a line about how she needs the bathroom. A suicide joke, including the line human pancake, back to back with a child abduction gag. I will remind you this is a kid's movie. A line about a jar of pickled farts delivered by Sonic who has a pair of underwear on his head. This scene, which feels too much to me like Maddie shaming Sonic and Tom for being emotionally vulnerable and them responding with, no homo though.
You two are so cute. Like,
Oh, please. What?
Like-
We are not.
No, we're not cute.
We are a couple of loose cannons just living by our own rules.
Exactly.
really?
Yeah.
A joke about a cow giving birth. And Tom almost saying a swear. All of those are gone in my edit, and there are two of them specifically I want to talk about because they were more complicated than just cutting the moment and fading the music. First, the drug dealer line. It was in response to Sonic not knowing what a payphone was.
You're gonna see Wade in that glass thing? What is it, a teleportation box?
It's a payphone. It's mostly for drug dealers and fugitives from the law, which is us. Stay in the car. I don't want anybody seeing you.
So instead, I thought the gag should just be Sonic doesn't know what a payphone is, the punchline is a shot of the payphone.
What is it, a teleportation box?
Stay in the car. I don't want anybody seeing you.
And to make that shot, I had to Photoshop a clean plate of the payphone from the shot later where Tom goes into it. Bit janky, but it works. The other line is Sonic saying he's gonna puke, which comes right after a joke about Amazon drones that was dated before the movie even came out.
Can you believe Amazon is gonna deliver packages with these things?
I took out both of these lines, but I didn't want to just cut out the shots, so instead I cut out the channel with the dialogue so I just had the background sound effects. Then I spliced in audio from DuckTales, where Ben Schwartz is using pretty much the same voice as he uses for Sonic.
Don't worry, I got it right where I want it. Yeah, talk about hard-headed, am I right?
I think it's pretty seamless. It's not perfect, but if you didn't know, I don't think you'd notice.
This was a horrible plan. What was I thinking?
So onto the main reason the Snyder Cut is so much shorter than the original version of the movie.
Every second Jim Carrey is on screen in Sonic is just absolutely nothing to me. I have nothing to say about it because it's nothing.
This is my most divisive change. A lot of people think Carrey carried this movie. And that's fine, that's okay, when you make your fan edit of the Sonic movie. Anyway, I cut around 14 Carrey scenes and moments. Everything from lines I didn't like mid-scene,
Ever wonder where your tax dollars are going?
to that bit where he dances for almost 2 solid minutes. If you're not on board for what he's going for in this movie, it's totally insufferable.
Are you in charge here?
Yes, I am. No! I'm wrong. I'm in charge.
Wow, that's really funny.
In a sequentially ranked hierarchy based on level of critical importance, the disparity between us is too vast to quantify. Agent Stone? The doctor thinks you're basic.
Listen.
Wow, that's really funny.
I'm sorry, Major. What was your name? Benny. Nobody cares.
Wow, that's really funny.
But I do like Jim Carrey in certain things, so with all that fluff chopped out, and despite a very minimal role in the Snyder Cut, I like this performance a lot. There are moments where he's being a hammy villain instead of telling jokes, and I like those, so I think of him as serving that role more primarily in my cut.
Can I give you one genius piece of advice? Don't run. It'll only hurt more if you do.
And it's bad for your joints. They've proved it.
All right, Eggman.
Don't run.
All right, Eggman.
And besides that, cutting out the extensive swaths of the movie spent with Carrey makes the movie feel more like it's from Sonic's perspective.
I'm sure no one noticed that giant blue explosion, right? Okay, everything is fine. I'm sure no one noticed that giant blue explosion, right? Okay.
The other way I did this was heavily cutting out any of Tom's scenes that didn't have Sonic in them, to a similar effect. There are long scenes where he's riffing and doing comedy bits, which is kind of weird in a movie that already has Sonic being wacky, and formerly Robotnik being wacky, also Tom's cop friend Wade, Robotnik's assistant Agent Stone, and Maddie's sister, all of whom had further long-winded comedy shenanigans which are gone from the Snyder Cut. When Tom's with Sonic, he's the straight man, no homo though, so having him do terrible jokes is usually very unnecessary.
There's no people, just breathable air and giant mushrooms and stuff.
Well, look at it this way. At least you won't be the only fun guy.
No, don't ever do that again.
I liked it.
That can stay though, that's adorable. There's also all the scenes that are about him deciding he's going to San Francisco, or talking to Maddie about his motivations. Without all that, we get to experience Tom only through Sonic's point of view, which is fine. He tells Sonic he's moving to San Francisco anyway. And the surprising result of all that is that when I finished the edit and watched it through, I started to actually like Tom as a character. I already liked the parental dynamic, and I didn't dislike Tom, but without the gross jokes, the bad jokes, or the boring scenes, he's actually kind of charming and likable. He's still a cop, but nobody's perfect. There's one bit in one of the scenes that got cut where it's established that Tom's motivation is that he doesn't feel like what he does is important, and his dream is to actually save lives. That means when Sonic says this,
Thank you
For what?
for saving my life.
he makes a big old doing emotions being fulfilled face. So since that isn't a payoff to anything in the Snyder Cut, and since that's the other scene where I cut out the emotional score, I cut his close-up short. Alright, those are all the major categories of changes I made, so let's just run through everything I haven't already covered. I added a Sonic Says segment from Adventures.
When you use your imagination, there's no limit to the places you can go and things you can do.
Along with Paramount's feature presentation tag onto the front of the movie.
Paramount is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
I cut this Obi-Wan Kenobi joke.
She was basically Obi-Wan Kenobi, if Obi-Wan Kenobi had a beak and ate mice.
There's a gag where Sonic makes a rewinding noise and the movie plays backwards super fast, so I swapped it for a sped up and reverse version of the edit, so that it wouldn't have any frames of scenes that don't show up later. This scene about the guy who knows about Sonic and who everyone calls Crazy Carl felt just a little bit too mean to me, so I cut it shorter, which means that Sonic isn't in the Snyder Cut, sorry. The Keanu joke is, not really a joke, it's just pointing out that people really like Keanu Reeves right now and expecting that to be funny, so I cut it shorter. I removed this weird sound Sonic's face makes. This change was integral to the entire experience. I cut out the shot of Sonic's bare feet through his destroyed socks. No shade if that's your cup of tea, but it's not mine. In the scene I cut where Sonic drove the car for no reason, there was an Uber joke that I will not miss. I cut one line from Tom's overdramatic speech when they briefly think Sonic's dead.
His name was Sonic.
This was his home.
And he was my friend. That little alien knew more about being human than you ever will.
This was his home.
And he was my friend.
His name was Sonic is just a step too far, pushing the scene into laughably bad. And in what I expect to be another divisive change, I cut both of the post-credit scenes. Carrey looking like Robotnik for the first time wasn't enough to redeem one of his least funny scenes, and the Tails reveal is cool and memorable, but too sequel-baity for my tastes. And that's it, that's everything. There's definitely one or two cuts that I wasn't able to hide very well, and with all the filler cut out, it does feel, as I said, like a TV movie. But now, anytime I want to go back to the movie, I have a version that is just the things I like about it. None of the onslaught of uncomfortable jokes to spoil the mood of the wholesome relationship I liked so much. None of the Carrey scenes I had trouble putting up with. None of the boring Tom stuff. And with added bonuses, like all of the Sonic music bringing out the childish excitement in me of, holy crap, this is a live-action Sonic movie, this actually exists. Everything from Sonic Boom to City Escape to His World now feels like a celebration of Sonic. And the VHSification of the movie does pretty much make it feel authentic to the movies I rented from the video store as a kid. Stuart Little, Casper, Inspector Gadget, Rocky and Bullwinkle, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Looney Tunes Back in Action, Garfield, George of the Jungle. Good movies? Debatable. Important Zoomer culture? Absolutely. The Sonic movie appeals to me not just as a Sonic fan, but also as an enjoyer of that niche of live-action cartoon movies that feels specific to my childhood, even if they are still making them. And the other result of making and watching the Snyder Cut is that now I'm a lot more into the upcoming Sonic 2. When the trailer first came out, I was honestly a little indifferent. It looked satisfactory, but not surprising in any way. But now that I've spent so much time looking at the first movie, seeing new Sonic movie content was exciting and strange. It was in widescreen letterbox format, how weird is that? And, of course, the thought entered my mind, I wonder what I'm gonna end up cutting out of this movie. It feels like it's inevitable. The most viewed video on this channel right now was my pitch for the Sonic sequel, which I wrote when I got excited thinking about the new way they handled his character. So I've already got a version of the movie in my head. Does that mean I'll end up making Sonic 2 even Snyder? Only time will tell. By the way, I have Sonic shoes now. Like, when they made the movie, they did a deal with Puma, and Puma released the shoes that Sonic wears. And these aren't those, they're not Pumas, but I'm pretty sure they're an imitation and they're meant to be. And, that's exactly the kind of thing I as a person need to own.